It's the summer of 2019 and I had just broken up with my girlfriend. This was probably like sophomore year of high school. It was kind of a hard decision to make because I just felt like I just felt like I had so much potential within myself. And even though I was just 15 years old, for some reason I kept telling myself, oh, I want to be this certain type of person before I get in a relationship. I want to be this certain type of person for myself, right? I was very lucky to have that self-discovery at such a young age. And so in 2019, right before COVID, I decided to break up with my girlfriend, and something happened where I just went through a huge spiritual shift, right? Went through a whole self-discovery shift where I got on self-improvement, right? I got on self-improvement, started doing a lot of good habits, started looking into so much tips on like productivity, basically building good habits, just all these different types of things. And I kind of kept that up for a little bit until about the middle of 2020 where COVID really hit. And again, I was having some pretty good progress throughout my journey so far, but for some reason when that time came around, I just started becoming very inconsistent with basically my goals, right? I started becoming very inconsistent with my growth, and I just kept falling into ruts. I kept falling into cycles. I kept falling into, kept like tracing back on, just old habits and things like that. And it was just very hard to get out of it, right? And that kept on going on until 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. Like, so basically it went on for years where I was just constantly in this cycle of just being in ruts, right? Where I will start a habit, I will start to do good things for myself and try to be on self-improvement, but then I will always fall back. I will always go back to square zero, and it will just be so hard trying to make growth in my goals. And so again, I've been stuck in this rut for years, and I've been trying to get on self-improvement with trying all these different tips and all these different habits and things like that. But I realized that it wasn't until I decided to look back where I can start then moving forward in my life. So self-improvement is a great thing, right? It is amazing how there is a whole sphere on the internet where people want to improve themselves, where people want to get better every single day. I love that so much, right? The fact that self-improvement became such a mainstream thing, I'm so happy that everybody wants to improve in their lives. But I realized that with self-improvement, there's just a couple of issues when it comes to the movement, right? First of all, self-improvement focuses a lot on the external rather than the internal, meaning that a lot of the things that we try to do in our lives to better ourselves come from external things that are going to help us, which is great. But it wasn't until I realized that a lot of the things that actually will help us in the beginning of our journeys and also just the rest of our journey is that we need to also focus very heavily on the internal self, right? Basically focusing on what it is, who we are, that's going to actually help us grow. And the second issue is that it just puts a lot of stress on ourselves, which leads to just a lot of counterproductivity, right? So there's a lot of pressure on ourselves where we need to be better. We need to do this and that to get better, to our higher self and all these different types of things, right? And it's a great thing, but there are times where it just puts a lot of pressure on ourselves, and there's just a lot of overwhelm, and that can actually lead to counterproductive. It can actually reverse what you're trying to do, right? And not actually make you productive. And so what I'm basically trying to say is that when I realized that every single one of us are buildings, right? Imagine every single person you see in the sphere. We're all buildings trying to build ourselves up as high as we can possibly go. The issue is that when we are starting self-improvement, we are building upon a foundation that is not stable, right? We're trying to stack all these different hobbies on top of each other and trying to, build ourselves and we're trying to basically build our life together, which is a great thing. But with every building, if there is not a stable foundation, the building will eventually crumble. And so every single one of us, when we are starting self-improvement, we're so quick to just be like, okay, I'm gonna start putting the bricks down, I'm gonna start putting the beams up and all this and that, but we forget about the most important part of developing ourselves, which is the structure of the building, right? The things beneath the surface that's actually going to then help us with everything at the top. So this is the concept that I kind of go over in my course. Link is in the description. Basically, I just made a course for lazy people because I used to be a lazy motherfucker, right? And so basically, how to become an ambitious person and actually get work done as a lazy person. Because I know that's something I struggled with for years, and that's probably something you're struggling with now, right? And you're gonna start seeing a much simplified way on how to see results in your life in a much faster time than the years it took me to learn this. And so link is in the description, but let's move on. So what is the foundation, right? I talk about, yes, every single one of us, we all have a foundation, which then is beneath us. And so our foundation is the suppressed emotions that we have. It is the experiences that we've lived. It is the things that we've told ourselves at a young age and the beliefs that we hold within ourselves. That is our foundation. And our foundation is built by, either your parents, your teachers, your friends, your environment, the stories you tell yourself. That is our foundation, and that is how it's built. And so if we have limiting beliefs, negative thoughts, all these different things that cause a weak foundation, it is going to be so hard to place bricks on top of that when we are viewing ourselves in a certain type of way. And so I really want you guys to understand this one concept that I go over in my course, and it is basically, how do people act, right? Why do people act? How do people decide to do what they want to do? And so we must start from actions, right? Let's think of a building, and at the very top of that building, the tippy top of the skyscraper is going to be our actions. Right? Everybody in this world, we all do actions. I bring out my camera, you go brush your teeth, you go to work, right? We all do actions. Those actions then are broken up or clumped together are habits, right? We all have habits that we do throughout our day that, again, looking at it smaller is just actions. But then those habits, we do habits because we have beliefs about things, right? Our beliefs about certain things cause us to do certain habits and cause us to act on certain things. And so the beliefs that we have about, certain things. So like my belief that, YouTube is an amazing thing. I love YouTube. I'm going to do YouTube. And it causes me to act on the habit of whipping out my camera every once in a while, not once in a while, like once a week to start recording videos, right? The action of scripting and all that, right? The beliefs then cause our actions. And so the beliefs then cause our habits, which our habits come together as basically actions. So our beliefs, where do they come from? Our beliefs come from emotions that we hold from certain things. The emotions that I get from YouTube, right? The emotions of, oh my God, like this is such an amazing thing. Like I love it so much. That causes a certain belief that this, what I'm doing right now, has a purpose. It is good for me. And so it causes me to act on it. Right? Every single one of our beliefs, we have emotions towards that. And our emotions come from stories that we tell ourselves. When I was 9 years old, watching YouTube on my TV, seeing all these people become successful and being able to provide good lives for their families, that's the stories that I told myself at a young age. And those stories caused emotions, right? It caused positive emotions within myself. Those emotions then cause the belief of this causes that. Basically, you see the whole gist, right? So the stories are the foundations. That is the very bottom of our foundation of ourself. And so basically, if we can understand what our stories are, if we can understand what it is that our foundation is and what's really driving us to act on certain things, those emotions that we hold towards certain beliefs, those beliefs and how those are causing our certain actions towards things, we're going to start seeing much more change in our lives and much more consistency in the growth of our self-improvement, rather than just trying to stack all these things on top of each other, right? Wanting to do X, Y, and Z habits without really understanding who you are as a person, right? The self-beliefs that you have within yourself. Because if you're someone who is, you want to go to the gym, right? That's the self-improvement habit that you want to do. Start going to the gym, start working out, putting on some muscle. But your foundation is, when you were 6 years old, you got bullied for being fat. You got bullied for being the fat kid in class who couldn't even lift up a pencil or whatever, right? And so you had the belief that, oh my gosh, like I am a weak person. I'm a weak person, and that the emotions that you hold around working out, right, are just negative. And so because of that, every single time you start trying to go to the gym, you think, yeah, I could do it, right? Like you're gonna start going to the gym, you're gonna start working out, but you always fall off. But you always, think, oh my God, this is too hard, I don't want to do this, and then you leave the gym, right? There's always going to be some factor that's going to cause you to fall off, because you're not realizing that the deeper emotions within you, the deeper story that you hold within you is that 6-year-old self, or maybe that 9-year-old self who got bullied for being the fat kid in class who couldn't even do a single push-up or whatever, right? Whatever story you hold. So once you understand what your stories are, the best way to go about this and start seeing change in your life is basically, first of all, take the pressure off yourself. Take the pressure off yourself for needing to improve, and just start falling in love with the process, whether it is failure or success, whether it is negative or positive. Start falling in love with that feeling, whatever avenue it is, right? Start falling in love with the stories that you tell yourself. You're probably thinking like, even if the story is negative, how do I fall in love with it, right? It is basically, don't have resistance to the story, right? If you even have a negative story that you have within yourself, don't suppress it. Don't try to neglect it. Be fully aware of that story and how it has shaped you. And what you can do is you could probably start viewing the story in a different light. That 6-year-old kid who was fat, getting bullied for, not being able to work out, whatever. Instead of viewing it in a very negative way and like, okay, this is why I can't do this and that's that. Start viewing it in a way of like, you know what? That 6-year-old kid is the reason why I'm even here in the first place. Because what I see in that 6-year-old kid is that kid actually had a lot of value in wanting to be better. He actually had a lot of value in wanting to be stronger because of the experiences that he had. It wasn't that 6-year-old kid got bullied and now he hates the gym forever. It is that 6-year-old kid. The reason why I'm even here today is because I felt something back in my younger self. And it, all these years later, is the reason why I'm here today. And just start falling in love with the stories that you tell yourself, right? Whether they're negative or positive. And so again, the biggest way is to like not resist the emotion, because a lot of the times it is the resistance to the emotion that we hate or have a lot of resistance to, rather than the feeling itself, right? Because wanting to be sad and sad is a whole different experience than not wanting to be sad and you're sad. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot more resistance, and there's a lot more like negativity when I don't want to be sad, but I'm sad, rather than just accepting the fact that I'm sad. I don't want to be sad, and this is a good emotion. Like, this is an amazing thing, right? That's why a lot of people say just feel your emotions, because they really will rise back up and get to you eventually, right? Because it is emotions that really do drive us in almost every factor in life. And then also, again, look internally and not externally, right? And so again, the gym is great. Eating healthy food is an amazing thing, right? Look good, feel good. All these self-improvement things are amazing. But I will also say put a lot of focus within the internal things as well. Shadow work, journaling, looking within yourself, right? Retelling the stories that are holding you back, right? Again, start rebuilding that foundation within yourself, because if you don't rebuild the foundation, your building is going to constantly crumble. And so build a stronger foundation within yourself, the stories that you tell yourself. And yeah, again, I cover all this and a lot more in my course. Link is in the description. Hunnid, stay Hunnid with yourself.